Teammate up 1 game in this best-of-5 series over Team Freedom. Soon we'll be heading into the Battleground pool again to figure out what Team Freedom wants to do. Do they feel like they will do better with the Battleground pick? Do they want first pick like Team Freedom is known to choose? The world is their oyster, kind of. It's because they lost the last game, but otherwise, it's their choice.
I'm going with, I haven't looked yet. I haven't cheated. What do we think? What do we think? Ooh. I don't know. My first thought would be like something lame like Tomb. What is it?
Braxis Holdout.
Braxis Holdout. Okay.
Yeah,
so
Team Freedom has never chosen Battleground pick after losing a game yet. No Tomorrow was that way for a long time. Ended up making that adjustment last week, but holding true to that, so Teammate has chosen Braxis. But this is a good Battleground for both teams.
It is. And it is one where neither of these teams have shown their Zagara yet, but it's infected other teams. I was going to say infested other teams.
Why didn't you?
I don't know, really. It's just one of those things where I'm like, it doesn't feel right, but it does. And but they've affected or infested other teams in North America with it. So do either of these teams have it? Since this is the first place we saw it, will we see it here? I feel like if anybody was to, it would be Freedom, and I just don't feel like they would.
I don't know. You never know what Prismaticism is going to play.
That's a good point. That's a good point. And Freedom is also the most stubborn, it feels like, with innovation, or at least
initially.
Yeah, maybe not stubbornness.
On a new patch.
It's just maybe learning, you know, to be a bit slower, or maybe the at least philosophy to kind of approach these things. Because when we have as many changes come in as we'd experienced here between the last patch that we were playing on and this one, it takes a long while, I'll put it, to be able to find the proper answers on what's right and wrong. Conveniently enough, we get the answer first pick.
That is a faster, oh man, that is way faster of changes for Freedom than we have ever seen before, guys. Before they played a series that we didn't have the next week, or the next week was when they started making changes. We're getting it in game 2.
Oh my. Gilly, we're in a meta where you can ban Murden in your first ban phase. You can pick Chromie in your first rotation as a response to a Zagara first pick. That, in fact, is the 2.0 meta so far in North America. That's just something I have never been able to say, ever. A first pick Zagara has existed very rarely, but then the Chromie response pick in the first rotation.
It is Teammate. They do love Chromie.
They do, but it's still a little weird. Not so much as a pick, but just the fact that, you know, like that is like a not... The fact that that is now a standard, that we can see that and be like, oh yeah, you know, that's within reason. This makes sense.
Freedom also banned Falstad, so limiting the global possibilities for Teammate. Are they going to ban Dahaka here too?
Is it Wait a minute. Okay, will they ban Dahaka for Teammate?
Team Freedom.
Team Freedom. I'm sorry, I had a moment. Okay, why Morales there? Gilly! Help! I need help! That Morales was above every other support into a Chromie. You can't heal yourself. One combo. You get stuck with it. It's a double support, isn't it? There's no way that's by itself. There's no way. Seriously, either that or there's something in my Gatorade today, this morning. Like, you know what I mean? It's just...
The EU broadcaster slipped something in it.
That's it, dude.
I don't... No, she can't heal herself, but she can try to move around while healing to avoid it. She does give constant heals.
I mean, she's good for the four-man.
She's a great pick on this Battleground.
She's a great pick on the Battleground in the four-man. North America has had less four-mans than we've ever had, period. Like, we have pulled away from the idea of traditional laning faster than we ever have before. So what I'm trying to say is, you're not wrong, but this doesn't... Every argument I could come up with didn't add up. That's why it took so long thinking about it. It just...
Especially because Freedom have focused so hard on having Malfurion.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll find out right now.
We will.
She can stim... Will they stim drone? Maybe stim drone Vala? She has to pick Medevac. Right?
Unless you double support.
There's Zeratul now.
You could Uther into it. What's a Zeratul to an Uther Divine Shield?
It's a Zeratul to an Uther Divine Storm. Bong!
He's still a big deal for both of those, actually. Compared to the Divine Shield, it's more of a pause button from the death than it is really saving them from the Zeratul. I don't know, man. My mind's been blown. I'm learning things in 2.0. Seeing some stuff I've never seen before in these drafts.
Is it another support? We're doing it! The Stitches!
We are.
China has finally made its way over to North America.
It has.
Oh,
For Zagara, now the Stitches, man.
I can't wait to see what the build will be. If it's true Chinese Stitches.
What does Chinese Stitches run, Gilly?
All slam all the time.
Slam was just recently buffed.
If there is a slam talent on that tier, you take it.
Do they run it in solo?
They have. There are some times when they'll change up. E-Star did this past week, where they changed up and ran the tanky Stitches build. But no way, man!
And the Ariel last pick for teammate.
This is fun.
Gotta ask, man, what are your thoughts? Just what do you feel when looking at these rosters on both halves?
This is a massive change for Freedom.
Yeah.
So first of all,
It's just
way excited to see that.
Yes.
That Freedom is willing to say, you know what? We're not even going to try to run a full what we are known to do for an entire series and then try to change. And honestly, they don't have time to do that. They play No Tomorrow tomorrow. They have to figure things out. So I love this adaptation for Team Freedom. But other side, pretty strong. Solo laner is the main question for me. We have seen twice now, Chromie plus Gul'dan on Braxis Holdout. What do you think about this double mage?
the double mage is going to have a hard time killing Stitches, that's for sure. It's just how much damage can it get into the Morales. Tassadar will be able to be there to help a little bit, but it will be very difficult for Freedom. You know, Tiger's going to have very safe, proper rotations, making sure he's not dying. Morales should just die to the Zeratul from the poke, you know, the flank, the dive, it's just everything about it makes me be like, you know, your standard, oh, if Morales can just not die, but it just feels like it's going to be way too likely for that to be the case. Laning phase is what I really look for Freedom to be successful in if they're going to be anywhere in this game. Or just the hook factor is always something to be afraid of too, but that's one of those things where I want to save it to see the evidence that it can be played.
Does Morales have a problem laning phase, though? Because it's got to be Zeratul top, right? Unless they put Gul'dan up there versus Zagara?
A noob. You can run a noob up there, run Zeratul into the bottom, and keep the rotations that way. That's the thing, is you don't have to commit your tank to the 4-man, especially like when it's into a Stitches comp. Like just
and they have to make sure that they win the top, right? Because you've only got your poke and your support?
I mean, yeah. That...
Let's just get in the game.
Yeah, okay,
Let's get in the game. We're going to go into the game, and then we'll have this talk. Because I know you've got stuff to say.
That one's, yeah, this one, you open with, you've had a lot of hard questions today. And hard as in, like, they're usually not, at least with how poor I am with words, broadcast digestible. You know what I mean? Where it's like, let me just ask you, Gilly, how was your day? If I say good, the average audience can listen to that and it'd be freeload. But now you're just like...
The difference is that has 0% things to do with the game that we are indeed here to talk about.
That's a good point. That's a good point. So, already at level 1, Tassadar moving with the W, but that was already a situational level 1, so...
Yeah, especially on Braxis Holdout, because you can stack that Scion Fusion talent so quickly because of the different... How... So far in laning, already a shakeup. Teammate would guess that Zagara will be top lane, and Chromie and Zeratul are there, but... There's our first hook. It's Tassadar, Zagara in the bottom lane.
That's the one thing I'm really afraid of. Like, we've seen more Stitches around the world, here and there. But, like, China started playing Stitches because they have a really good Stitches player. 6 at the time was just slaying kids with it, hitting every hook it felt like he could. Europe has played a bit of Stitches, and also the teams that still play Stitches a lot are usually the ones that have, like, renowned Stitches player for a long time. Even Dignitas, JPL, has been known to be a Stitches guy forever. But I never looked at Freedom and was like, yeah, this is, you know, Zugrug, the Stitches main. And that's the one thing that has me concerned. Because though he is becoming more relevant, it's guys that hit near every hook. And the ones that they do miss are really good jukes on the other end.
There's not a lot of follow-up for hooks. So
yes.
Is there an alternative reason to why getting Stitches? I mean, you did mention slam damage was buffed, so was his health and regen.
Then the only two arguments would be mainly against the casters, if you're looking for that dampen magic, which obviously he did, picking that up at 1. But Tyrael can do that a little bit well, not necessarily great at a double warrior, and Anubarak's the other one, which was denied by teammate.
Okay.
So it will help them to move into for the double anti-double mage, and it will help them with peel, but is that worth just picking a less damage-specific warrior like a Murden and decent survivability CC worth it more than that of the Stitches? We're yet to find out. No hook is landed yet.
Well, here is the reason why we see Lieutenant Morales here. She can sit and allow Zugrug to stand on the point for a very long time. Nasmus is chasing away everyone else. Can't be as aggressive as maybe he would like to be without Tassadar in the lane too, but still Collusion has a lot of heal possibilities as long as he makes sure to not run out of mana. I got distracted for a second, sorry.
It's all good. A lot of interesting laning here between the 3-2 of Freedom. That was the one thing I wanted to talk about a bit more in the draft that I was really hard for me to gauge is what laning phase decisions Freedom would try and make because, oh man, Zach getting picked on bottom, that really does hurt them. Dansky cannot win this out, has to hop the Eve and dodge that coming out. Prismatism, good hook. Not as good follow-up. A nice burrow from Justin to be able to peel out. 42% has been obtained when it comes to the shrine itself, the Zerg Rush. Teammates doing fine, but Freedom here with their laning choice, they had a lot of routes they can go with. Zagara, Stitches are actually good solos. Tassadar's one too. So they could have moved into any direction, and I feel like this Zag on its own makes the most sense. Just Tassadar maybe should be on its own and send the 3-man to rotate around. I think that would have been a really good, especially after this front wall, if Dansky just stays kind of up top and then send the trio down to bottom, take out another one.
This is the first adjustment for laning phase. Well, actually, technically the second. Teammate switched once they realized that Zagara was going to be in the bottom lane with Tassadar. But this is the next adjustment, and that's what you see a lot on Brux's holdout, is who can get an edge from that. Team Freedom starting to take down the second tower here on the top lane. A slight experience advantage, but it is super small. And so far, Zag hasn't had too much problem dealing with the 2-man of Chromie and Zeratul since that adjustment's been made.
Yeah, just very little. And that makes a lot of sense just because Chromie, you know, Zeratul as well. Neither is known for their wave clear pressure. It's all about the kills. And Zagara doesn't need to stand still. Chromie reliably, or should never be able to reliably get damage out into her.
And you can see the difference of positioning for Nasmus now that he has a Tassadar to enable him just as much as Lieutenant Morales. It's a whole different game once you play that Bala and have double support along with you.
You really do become a very different beast here. Really interesting note, and the fact that that's the first Tassadar we've managed to see here in HGC North America. So far out of the 5 games, this is the first one he's even shown up, not even banned out. Justing taking the point for a while. Going to be redeemed once more by Freedom, but Insomnia losing his life on bottom. Glarung wreaking havoc once more onto the bug. And this is Team 8 pulling ahead again.
So far, the Stitches build has been dampened magic. We still did have Slam at 4, but then at level 7, getting some more area damage with his toxic gas. The vile gas increasing the range and duration, I believe. No, it's damage by 50%.
The Zagara's making her way back to lane now. Glarung the whole time just kind of roaming to try and figure out where anybody is on the map. Looking to get a pick, even picking up a camp here and there. The tri-lane slowly being won by Freedom, and nobody's budging. Not until at least a 4 goes down or maybe more kills. Yoda got picked. No, the heels of blood.
Grenade! Support kill from Collusion.
Worth. Always feels good.
Always. Getting a well would be a nice victory for Team Freedom, and they get it. Glaurung has now rotated up. Oh. Catches Ariel. Damage there. Disruption from Justing. Saves his support,
wow.
at least initially.
Nasmus with the confident Vault W. Picks up the pick with that last auto attack. Chromie has caused pressure on bottom through the camp that Glaurung has managed to pick up, forcing Insomnia to not have any ammo. And just legitimately back miles away. Very good job here coming out from him.
Did Mobius loop too, so he's not even getting the big damage burst from Dragon's Eye, but instead pairing that again with Flowing Sands, as they always do, but helps make sure that he has Dragon's Breath up more often for wave clear, and then just constant poke. Insomnia has had a rough time of it in bottom lane. Yeah,
which is a lot of, like, when looking at the laning situation, why I felt like maybe committing Zagara to the 4-man would have been worth it. Just because whenever you see Zeratul on laning phase maps like Dragonshire, we know that they have to focus for the kills. That's the only thing they really can do. They don't accent much onto the 4-man. Decent wave clear. So then you remove any kill potential to your isolated solos. And the way you do that is through, again, Stitches is a pretty good solo laner. Or Tassadar, and then Zagara joins the 4-man, and then when things break apart, leaves Stitches up on top, he joins the 4-man on bottom, and Tassadar and Stitches should never be able to get isolated picked.
Tassadar came down to help for a little bit for Insomnia, but now with heroic abilities almost here, Team Freedom making sure they have a 4-man again in the top lane. I'm wondering about Reign of Vengeance as a potential follow-up for hooks, or if Team Freedom want to make sure that they have the consistent damage they can get from Strafe. Reign of Vengeance.
Medevac as well. Nidus Network was the choice for the Zag, but we're yet to see a new Barak. Cocoon. Is Cocoon the proper current name?
Yes.
I'll be honest, Web Wrap and Cocoon, I get back and forth all the time. That's one where I'm just like, I've never gone out of my way to think of it, because it used to be called, for those who didn't know, Web Wrap, but it is now Cocoon. There goes the Bile Detainment Strike against the wall. Zugrug trying to make his way out. And he gets just out of range there of the damage, but the Cocoon lands Collusion right into the Void, and he is fine.
Thanks to the movement speed bonus of the Putrid Bile, Zugrug stays alive. Takes some time for Lieutenant Morales to heal up everybody so they could re-engage. And in the bottom lane, Zagara was there the whole time, so she took away that beacon. Zeratul now moving on to take that away again. This will force Team Freedom to step back onto the point, making sure that they don't give away any more beacon progress. So 56% now. This is only our first beacon phase. It's been a slow one.
Yeah, the laning phase has been won by Freedom, it feels like. But even though the picks that have happened from Glaurung on bottom picking off the Zagara, the laning has been won by Freedom, but they haven't been winning the Shrine because of the picks. And so now that they have managed to take out the first forward of the game, they should be able to cycle out their laning decisions, you know, even inverse it if they want and put more pressure up on the bottom. But I'm optimistic here for Freedom here in this game after watching that last fight. Granted, things went about as bad as they could have gone for Team 8. Their Cocoon Void isolation composition didn't work out too well. They're usually, you know, never want the Cocoon to get out and instantly land into a Void, especially when it's a Morales. Time Walker's pursuit complete is going to be a pretty big one.
The rotation has started. Zagara is now in the top lane to be able to threaten the lane that not only has the Zerg pushing, but also the fort down. The problem with this is Team 8 has not committed to the top lane versus her. They have the mercenary camp that buys time, and because of that, they're holding on to both. And nobody rotated up. Everyone had rotated down. Zagara even came down to help. So Team 8, anticipating what Freedom was going to do, now has the full Zerg at their disposal.
100-0, which is totally not fair because that 4,000 health is more than 0. Not an accurate representation of one team Zerg rush, but either way, Team 8 has a lot of HP moving down this bottom lane. How much can they get out of it? Zagara's a pretty good anti-defense. Stitches is actually really hard to siege into, one of the more hard to value type deals whenever you're playing, if you haven't played against him recently.
Yeah, and he did take Putrid Ground to try to help out with the area damage, taking down the Zerg as they can. That plus Tassadar, his Scythe Infusion is almost done. This will be cleared out quickly, but a fort was taken down, deconstructed by Team 8, who are now in control of the experience game.
They are very much so in control of just every part of this game, even though the experience has found itself pretty close here. 13 going to be closed in. Is there any 13 spike coming out from teammate where they might want to force this window? Not really.
They had reaching through time for a while. Blinding flash, even though it was, the duration was nerfed with the RL changes. Yeah, 16, we're waiting for sentence to death. That is where Zeratul damage gets a lot stronger. That and rewind at 20.
That's the only one, really. Nobody else has even a major 16 power spike. Gul'dan's is pretty good, but not as crazy as some of the other heroes in the game. Stitches finally in HGC from Bikini Stitches. Yeah, you would. You would. Cheer for the Stitches team.
It's even, it is the Stitches, of course.
He was
Bikini
in the middle
Stitches,
of the game.
Yeah, he took some time to make sure.
Is he just keeping his cell phone jammed in that little rubber ducky around his waist, or what?
Well, the tweet was probably put out earlier, and he was like, as soon as he got ready to start, he took that time before. Oh, Cocoon came out. Now, Zugrak would love to run away, but that detainment strike was amazing.
Oh.
4 visor 2. Zugrak stays alive for so freaking long.
He stays alive the whole time, but the Void is keeping him in place. Can they make it out? Nope. That is going to be a pick there on the Stitches, and they are not done yet. Nasmus eating a Q coming out from Prismat. Drops the W. Good juke coming out from Dansky. And we are back to peace and tranquility here on Brax's holdout teammate, now a level ahead.
Malfurion wasn't picked. Tranquility.
Yeah, that's, you know, I was looking for it, couldn't find it. I was like, why is she referencing Malf right now? But
I gave you time, but the look on your face said,
it was a very,
no.
There's no world where I come to the same answer that you came up with. It's just, I'm trying to look at this game in where teammates comp is something they've been running a bit before. There are some changes in their damage type, but it's the isolation Zeratul Cocoon game. Not crazy. I'm more looking at Freedom with what they drafted. And what do they do to change it? You know what I mean?
Well, it's a Stitches pick is always, things can change if you start hitting hooks, right?
Yeah.
Fishing hook at 16, possibly. Although with the slam talent so far, to me, thinks we're going to see slam still at 16.
I don't know. I can see Stone Skin because he's the one outside of the Void every time. He's the one they're trying to kill.
That's true.
And if he can eat all that damage,
he is just barely not living through it now, or living through it.
Yeah. Bile was used.
Can he hook someone into that? Slowing Sands is annoying in the middle of that.
Long went in on Dansky, forced the Archon, and immediately disengages. 3-4 heroics available for Team 8. Zagara hits the trap. Archon is down.
Oh, Zugrak's getting low. I'm watching for Horrify now. That and Void Prison is what it comes down to. Nasmus is right in the middle of Team 8. Throws out a Rain of Vengeance. Vaults back. Stays alive. Does throw back Team 8 temporarily, but Team Freedom are running out of time. Team 8 almost at 16.
Yeah, and not only that, the 6% away from getting themselves another 100-0 Zerg Rush, as they are so patiently waiting. They don't even scrape at the glass. You know, to think about that much Zerg in that tiny little area. Team 8 will be able to get the 16 though, force the DK, or not the DK. Man, objective, just names are all over the place right now. They will be able to pick up the Zerg Rush and push real hard here. Freedom, nowhere to find that 16 again. It's just, you cannot take a fight without it, really. It's too good.
Echoed Corruption has not been completed yet. So even though Ruinous Affliction is there, still waiting on that, but he didn't get bound by Shadow, so it's going to take a little bit longer because he doesn't have cooldown reduction like you normally see with the Corruption build.
And Freedom doesn't have anybody soaking bottom right now. That means they're going to lose a key. They don't get 16 fast enough. There is no trickle-in experience unless Zagara, she just now moved. It doesn't matter. They'll get it too late. The keep will be dead by the time Team Freedom even manages to get it. They do get the Zugrak Horrify.
Cocoon was used too, but Putrid Vial plus the rest of the damage takes it out fast, but Stitch is just blown down.
See, Zagara came back before 16. Nasmus goes down. There's the keep with 2 members dead. Team 8 now actually has a chance to possibly core if they get enough picks.
3 people remain. Collusion doing what he can to keep Zagara and Tassadar healed up. Team 8 happy to disengage from this.
Zagara's rotated back towards bottom. Thought for a moment there he was going to move up to that wave. I was like, man, you have confidence here, Insomnia. Just establishing a Nidus network to be able to be more mobile. Part of the reason she's so viable on Braxis holdout is those nice little areas right there in between the fort and the keeps to be able to hide your Nidus. Team 8, 5-2 in kills. Full control of the match so far as Freedom just caught up in talent tiers. And they've got to keep up, so now they've got the pressure of Mercenaries. Freedom just says, screw it, we're going to start the boss. You got to come answer to us.
How does Control look for this? Horrify's not up yet. Void Prison's not up yet either, but Horrify will be up.
Yeah, Bile will be too, which is actually surprisingly good. This is going to be a close boss, actually.
There is no Moss.
With
Stitches
no
has lost so much health before Collusion can heal him back up. He starts to go onto the point. Gets knocked back, though, from the grenade. Horrify pulls Stitches in. Team 8 takes out Stitches. They take the boss, and Nasmus may be the next victim of Team 8.
It was the cocoon that we saw there, and just the knockback coming out from the detainment strike, zoning away from the boss, enough for Team 8 to steal it. They've got a camp already on bottom, the boss moving with it. Might as well get another one to follow up. They have a siege of a lifetime down here on bottom. And with 2 catapults building on top, this is a minimum keep. Keep 20 talents here will be closing in. I mean, just Freedom's got a force.
Void Prison has grabbed Lieutenant Morales. Burrow comes in from Justing to follow. There's a lot of damage that Collusion just cannot keep himself alive through only a safeguard. Collusion is the perfect target for Team 8 to hit in those situations. With so much pressure, so much damage, Team 8 takes down Team Freedom on Braxis holdout for game number 2.
Another dominant win when looking at the end screenshot of a game for Team 8. Early game, not as smooth as game number 1, but it's still pretty smooth. You know, the whole time, for the most part, it felt like they had, well, I guess like not even in this one. They lost the laning phase for the most part. They had the shrines.
They did, but it almost feels like they didn't because they only lost a fort. They delayed for so long. They won the shrine just as finally Freedom wanted to rotate around, and they kept Zagara at bay. Yeah. So that she, late game, never had the same kind of effect that Gale Force Esports did when they played Zagara.
And to be fair, Gale Force also ran Zagara in a very different composition.
Right,
and also,
double global.
Yeah, and a double global, which means the way that they approached it all, and they also had the Chromie on their side to be able to stop with the defensive sieging. They weren't into a Zeratul. There was a ton of different things different for the Zagara composition between Freedom and Gale Force Esports. I guess I just wanted to get that point across because a lot of people look at that and be like, oh, Zagara lost for the first time. And it's like, that's not the same Zagara. This is a very different one from what we saw at a GFE.
Yeah, Team 8, even though they did lose the fort earlier on, I felt like it took so long for the Zerg phase to happen and to take out that fort that it didn't work out the way that Freedom wanted. It should have felt more snowbally, I guess, for them to be able to take advantage of having Zagara and Nidus on that map.
Yeah, and a lot of that came to Glorung's pressure with the Zeratul early game, keeping her at bay and choking her out. And then also with the laning phase of what we saw out of Team Freedom, I totally can understand their thought process. Whenever you see Zag, you go, yep, that's our solo. We're going to put her there because she is best in that area. But again, it's one of those, considering my comp, considering my opponents, is this the safest laner? Stitches is still a very, very good solo laner. He's got sustain, wave clear, trades well into most heroes. Put him there as a safety net. Never can be picked by the Zeratul. She complements your 4-man very, very well. And suddenly you don't lose that. I think that would have been the step Freedom needed to make that game so snowbally that they couldn't Team 8 ever come back, right?
Right. Well, with Team 8 being able to call Team Freedom on that draft, keep them at bay, Team 8 are now 1 game away from closing out the series. We'll see if they can do just